Hello, SquirrelTribe. So believe it or not, President Donald Trump has been in office for 18 weeks. I can't decide if time has been flying since January 20th or if time has been dragging. I do know it's been 18 weeks and a lot has been accomplished in the last 18 weeks. There has been some ups, some downs, and everything in between. But right now, on his 18th week as a president, he is focused on Russia and Ukraine and the issues that have been plaguing those two countries for the longest time, since the Biden-Harris administration, to be specific. And it says right now he's kicking off this week with the high stakes bid to broker the Ukraine and Russia peace. Basically, he's going to be that middleman talking to Vladimir Putin and to Zelensky, trying to find a way to stop the war between the two of them, because it's dragging on, right? We as a country have spent a ton of money trying to help Ukraine do what it needs to do to defend themselves or to overtake Russia, or whatever phrase you want to use there. And I know that there are a lot of people who are not happy with the amount of taxpayer money that has been sent to the Ukraine for everything that's been going on. So right now you have our current president, President Trump, trying to find a way to make it so that these two sides, Russia and Ukraine, can find some sort of common ground, middle ground, even ground, something, in order to stop the violence, stop the nonsense, stop the whatever else is going on. So he was on the phone with Putin and with Zelensky earlier today, and the Caroline Leavitt just came out with this breaking news information, a statement from President Donald Trump from Caroline Leavitt. She posted here on X. It says, this is what President Trump's statement says. Just completed my 2-hour call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties, as it can only be, because they know details of a negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent. If it wasn't, I would say so now rather than later. Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over, and I agree. There is a tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. Its potential is unlimited. Likewise, Ukraine can be a great beneficiary on trade in the process of rebuilding its country. Negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will begin immediately. I have so informed President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, President Emmanuel Macron of France, we know how we feel about him, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany, and President Alexander Stubb of Finland during a call with me immediately after the call with President Putin. The Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin. So that's happening. That's interesting right there. I think it is kind of crazy and interesting that it comes down to trade. Like, out of everything that President Trump could have said, he talks about trade, and especially because of everything that's been happening since day one of the presidency, he came in and he started his America First policy, right? So America First policy obviously is going to involve our economy, and our economy is very reliant upon trade, whether it's imports or exports. And so he wanted to make it so that we, as the United States of America, aren't getting kind of like bent over by these other countries with the tariffs that they're placing upon us, right? For the tariffs they're placing upon us. So President Trump did reciprocal tariffs. And now with him talking about trade with Ukraine and Russia, that makes me wonder if he wants to possibly, some of the places where we've been doing trades with China, let's say China and Canada and Mexico, maybe he wants to find ways to get those same products from maybe Ukraine or Russia instead of these other three countries that kind of we've been, butting heads with. And Ukraine has a ton of stuff during the initial fighting between Russia and Ukraine. We talked about it here, SquirrelTribe. Y'all remember, leave it in the comments. I know you remember this. We talked about the fact that we got a lot of like fertilizer and things like that from Ukraine. So they were blaming a lot of the issues we were seeing with the food production and food shortages and things like that on the fact that we weren't getting this certain fertilizer from Ukraine because of the war, also because of COVID with the shipping and the issues at ports and stuff like that. And I know for a fact there's a lot of minerals that we get from Ukraine that President Trump wanted to be able to, I don't know if he wanted to change how that trade or that import export scenario was working between the United States and Ukraine when it came to minerals and things like that. But I know that minerals from other countries are very important, as are minerals here in our own country, right? Us being able to get our own minerals is extremely important as well. So the United States of America is currently working on making sure that its national security isn't compromised. As you guys know, I'm sure you know, there are many moving parts. You've got trade to the dollar, but my focus right now is on materials, which is kind of the bedrock of our economy. Without them, the U.S. will find it hard to compete with China, which we've talked about numerous times. That's why President Trump has signed several historic executive orders to protect copper production and mining here on U.S. soil. Copper is often called the new oil, It is at the heart of America's future, and I could not be more bullish about it, especially when it is coupled with gold. I love gold. That's all I can think of. What is that? Mike Myers and what movie is that? Austin Powers. I love gold. Anyway, copper demand is surging while supply struggles to keep pace. You guys know there's copper used in so many different things. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I am a full 10 on domestic U.S. copper production. I would like to see as much done here as humanly possible. Now, here's where basic and common sense supply and demand come into my bullish thesis. So, global mine production is expected to peak in 2026. We're currently in 2025, right? With a projected 700,000 ton deficit in 2025 alone. Underinvestment in new mines has created a supply crunch. Like I said, this is the time to get bullish and inquisitive on this sector and metal, meaning copper. The U.S.-China trade war has disrupted global copper supply chains. China, with its control of 50% of global smelting, faces export challenges. We will say maybe because of some tariffs, right? Now, Trump's investigation into copper imports aimed at bolstering national security is the leading edge in a worldwide revolution in mining. And I want us to truly grasp the scope of the opportunity with copper mining on U.S. soil. This is exactly, actually, what the administration thinks about copper. So this is what Lutnick had to say. Let me quote it. He said, American industries depend on copper and it should be made in America. No exemptions, no exceptions, to which Trump had to say, I have also imposed a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel because if we don't have it, we don't have a military. And frankly, we won't have a country for very long. That is his words, right? And then he also happened to say, copper should be made in America. It's time for copper to come back home. The world is hungry for copper, but we here in the United States of America have an opportunity to have our own without having to rely on another country for it.
Copper is a critical material, and the supply of copper is vital to our national security. In recent years, we've dealt with a significant issue of the dumping of foreign copper into the American market. That significantly impacted the domestic production and manufacture of copper and copper materials. This executive order charges your Secretary of Commerce with starting the process to potentially impose tariffs or other trade barriers to prevent this ongoing dumping of copper and to protect the American manufacture and production of copper.
It will have a big impact. Howard, you want to say something about that?
Do you mind if I read one of your truths?
Please.
So this is a truth that's about to go out. Like our steel and aluminum industries, our great American copper industry has been decimated by global actors attacking our domestic production. To build back our copper industry, I have requested my Secretary of Commerce and USTR to study copper imports and end unfair trade putting Americans out of work. Tariffs will help rebuild back our American copper industry and strengthen our national defense. American industries depend on copper, and they should be made in America. No exemptions, no exceptions. America first creates American jobs and protects our national security. It's time for copper to come home.
Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF, is the sponsor of today's video, so y'all check this out. Not only does it own a copper, silver, gold project in Nevada, but it also recorded its best ever drill intercepts in September of 2024, literally just a few months ago, with additional great results in just the past few weeks. This company is the only copper company I am bullish on right now. So on February 14th, Valentine's Day, on February 14th, Executive Order 14213 was issued and implicitly prioritizes copper as a critical resource. Nevada, where Giant Mining's copper project happens to be situated, has constantly ranked among the top mining jurisdictions in the world, which is why I am bringing this company to your attention. Giant Mining's balance sheet is now fully funded for its drilling programs in 2025. Giant Mining is well positioned to accelerate its exploration efforts and potentially capitalize on emerging copper market opportunities. This is great news in my view. The share price is down by 50% since early February due to market turmoil, so I am highlighting the company to you today for a reason. Giant Mining, again, U.S. ticker symbol BFGFF, owns the Majuba Hill Copper Project, a past producing mine. In the past 4 years, management and the company's geologists have actually expanded the copper deposit, and this past September, Giant Mining hit their best ever drill hole. Now, historic underground mines at the Majuba Hill project produced copper, tin, and silver from the early 1900s to the 1950s, including millions of pounds of copper, 2.8 to be exact, 184,000 ounces of silver, 5,800 ounces of gold, and 2,100 pounds of tin. I will say this again. All of these factors and the following ones are the ones that led to my significant bullish opinion about Giant Mining. Now, the infrastructure is ready. There are access roads, there's power supply, transportation, water supply, and ore stockpiles, processing space, and a processing plant. Do your homework, though, on Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF. SquirrelTribe. But on top of all of that, he's talking about trade with them, which I think is great. It will help strengthen both economies, whether you're for Ukraine or you're for Russia. It will help strengthen whichever economy it is that you are pro for, right? Because a lot of times you're pro this, but, not that. Like, we'll talk, Israel and Palestine and things like that. There's been a whole lot over the last year with that whole scenario, right? Same thing again with Russia, Ukraine. So it'll help their economies, but at the end of the day, it'll help our economies too. In theory, especially if we're able to export more to either of them or get a lower cost on import things from them, or we can get things from them to import in a cheaper aspect than from China or Canada or Mexico or whatever else. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because I think it's great that President Trump is trying to be that voice of reason. I do this because I don't really know what he said, and he has a tendency to, really speak his mind. And sometimes it's not a voice of reason. Sometimes it's a voice of don't be a dumbass, but maybe that is still considered a voice of reason, right? So I don't know what he said to them, but if it is something that seems to have set the things in motion to get the full-on ceasefire into all of this and then start rebuilding both countries and then helping ourselves as well, I'm all for it. Whatever happened on that phone call, I personally am all for it. Now, speaking of President Trump, y'all know that he's been trying to kind of clean up the country from the onslaught of people that have occurred over the last 4 years due to the, open border policy that Biden-Harris administration has. And it's not that we want a closed border policy. It's just that President Trump would like to have a border policy, like just something in general, right? And so he has been trying, him and his administration, they've been trying to deport people who do not legally belong here in the United States. Whether you're for that or against that, that's on you. I personally would like there to be more people here of a legal status because it is better for our economy that way. So you have here, Benny Johnson posted this on X. You guys may have already seen it. Let me know in the comments if you have. It says here, the Supreme Court has cleared the Trump administration to revoke legal status from 500,000 plus criminal aliens flown in under the Biden regime. Now time for the deportations. And, the U.S. Supreme Court has been fighting President Trump on almost everything. But this went through today, Monday, May 19th. And it says here, order and pending case. This is from Kristi Noem, Secretary Noem, and then you got some other stuff in here, blah, blah, blah. And it says the application for stay presented to Justice Kagan and by her referred to the court is granted. The March 31st, 2025 order entered by the United States District Court for the Northern District of California with a case number, and it has all these numbers, is stayed pending the disposition of the appeal in the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and disposition of a petition for a writ of certiorari. I got to quit using these big ass words that throw me off. If such a writ is timely sought, should certiorari be denied, this stay shall terminate automatically. In the event certiorari is granted, the stay shall terminate upon the sending down of the judgment of this court. This order is without prejudice to any challenge to Secretary Noem's February 3rd, 2025 vacatur notice insofar as it purports to invalidate EADs, Forms I-797 notices of action and Forms I-94 issued with October 2nd, 2026 expiration dates. And then it says Justice Jackson would deny the application. Whatever the crap that is the physical piece of paper that has come out with this in this Benny Johnson post over on X with the Supreme Court clearing the Trump administration to revoke legal status from 500,000 plus criminal aliens. So these people that were brought in and given like temporary legal status when they were flown in by the Biden administration, we talked about it numerous times over the last like 2 years, how they were flying in people from different countries, not just, crossing our southern border, but they were literally flying them in on planes from all these different places. Those legal status, those temporary legal status, now President Trump can revoke, but those people will then have to be flown back out. They will have to leave. A lot of people are here on what they called it. Oh, what's the word? Y'all tell me because my brain is not working. Like a sponsor kind of thing. I think that's the word they use, like the sponsors. So there were people or businesses that were paying basically the government to bring these people in so they could give them jobs, which has always been weird to me, like the J1s, that was it, J1Cs or just J1s? I can't remember exactly what that one is either. But it's like, why not just, I don't know, instead of spending all the money to like fly people in from other countries, why not just handpick from here within our borders? We have a lot of people who like jobs and need jobs and can do jobs. So if you could just pick from our own people, that'd be great. You ever seen Office Space? If you have, it makes sense. If not, maybe not so much. But on top of all of that, my dudes and dudettes, let's see. The Economist on X posted this thing up and I saw it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So it says here, crime appears to be declining all over America. One analyst estimates that this year is on track to be the least murderous nationwide since the 1960s, but the mystery is why. And that is extremely mysterious to me, although not really. And this is going to sound some type of way and it's not meant to, but if it sounds that way, it is what it is. But if this is going to be the least murderous year, maybe it's because we are, taking some people back to the places where they came from or legally belong versus illegally belonging here. That could have a little something to do with it, right? It could. But also it could have something to do with the fact that over time, and whether you're 2A or not, I personally am, but over time it's become harder for a lot of people to own firearms or things like this. Then you also have to take into consideration over the last couple of years, so many people became like hermits or recluses because they were worried about going out because of everything that happened with COVID, all of the kind of like the violence that surrounded the whole situation of C-19 and vaccines and whatnot. I feel like you have people who have gone a little bit more batshit crazy on their own, right? And that are still violent, but maybe not in the murderous sense, maybe just in a go, I don't know. There was this lady who was licking the license plate of a Tesla. It went from vandalizing them and, keying them and drawing things on them to licking their license plates. So maybe we've had less murderous people because we've had such a high uptick in mental decline. That might have something to do with it as well. I will be paying attention to see what reason they give why this could be the least murderous year since 1960. I just think the phrasing of it is absolutely crazy. NT ways. Speaking of, okay, listen. Y'all know, because you've been here before, I have a 15-and-a-half-year-old daughter. My husband and I, we have a daughter, and we talk to her all the time about social media because when we were her age, social media was not a thing. There were no cell phones. There were no pagers. You had a Game Boy, right? And maybe the first Nintendo. I'm trying to remember what year that came out when I was younger. 15. I was in high school. So Nintendo and Game Boy. And maybe a pager, because I am 43. I think pagers were then. And technically there were cell phones, but kids didn't have them. Those were the kind that were still this massive honking thing that was in the middle of your parents' car. And it still had like the cord to it. And you had to use it like a house phone anytime you want to make a cell phone call. Or then it went to the ones that was like the flip open, but then the antenna was like all the way up to here, right? They didn't have cell phones like they have now. Especially didn't have social media like that. There was no TikTok. There was no YouTube. There was no Instagram, Facebook, whatever else you have out there, right? So we talked to her all the time about what it was like for us growing up and how she is so lucky and unlucky in the way that she is growing up. She is lucky in the sense that she has all of this stuff at her fingertips. Anything she wants to know, she can just find it like that. When I was younger, my husband was younger, it was take your ass to the library, figure out what book you need, go find that book, go read all the way through it till you can find what you need. You better have the whole stack of encyclopedias. You better have a little bit of everything. You need a Webster dictionary, right? You had to have all this stuff. But now you don't. You just find it like that. Downside is our age group and older, generally speaking, are more inclined, I think that's the right word, more inclined to do research for ourselves and retain the information. Don't mind me. Y'all know I have way too much going on up here and sometimes I can't remember shit, like whatever. But we are way more likely to go search for an answer and then retain it versus these kids who look something up and know it for a second and then it flits right out of their head, right? But at the same time, we remind her that social media is a once it's out there forever situation, right? Whether it is a tweet, whether it is a text, whether it is an email, whether it's a photo that's shared on Instagram, any of these kind of things, it is out there forever and a day. So we talked to her about that, obviously, and we obviously talked to her because she is a 15-year-old girl. We talked to her about boys. And we talked to her about knowing what is okay and what is not okay, especially at your age when it comes to your body and what you show and what you do and whatever else. Because these are conversations that parents need to have with their kids. There's too many parents out there not having these conversations, as you can see from all of the MTV shows like 16 and Pregnant and TLC shows of knocked up people and all this other stuff and half naked kids all the time because they dress highly inappropriately, all these different things, right? So we're talking to her about it. And then I happened to see this thing that Caroline Leavitt put up this morning in regards to First Lady Melania Trump. And it's going to be awkward because I'm going to like hold my computer up like I normally do. Since, we're here on the phone for this live. But I want to hold this up and I want you guys to hear what she just had to say, because I think this is absolutely amazing. And the fact that it's just now being passed in 2025 or just now being thought of in 2025 is a little bit ridiculous to me. So let me see if I can get this up here, turn the volume up. Hold on, bear with me, work with me.
This afternoon in the Rose Garden, President Trump, alongside First Lady Melania Trump, will sign the Take It Down Act into law. First Lady Melania Trump was instrumental in getting this important legislation passed. The Take It Down Act will protect victims of digital exploitation, hold internet platforms accountable by requiring them to remove such imagery from their platforms, and provide justice for victims by allowing prosecutors to go after those who publish non-consensual explicit images online. The First Lady met with members in the House and the Senate, survivors and their families, and advocates throughout the process to get this bill across the finish line. We are grateful for the First Lady's hard work and dedication to this issue. And moving forward, she will continue to champion the well-being of our nation's children through her Be Best agenda. I know the president looks forward to signing that bill into law later this afternoon, and we will see you all there.
So to me, that is extremely important because I don't know if you guys have heard about this. I've seen it on a couple different sites and things and conversations that I've had with people. And there's a lot of people out there who are talking about the sextortion. I think that's the right word, sextortion that's been going on where somebody convinces, like they start, because let's calm it down, slow it down, woo-saw it for a second. With the video games and like you've got Omegle, you have video games like Roblox and Call of Duty and what's that one, Fortnite, all these games and all these things that these kids are on all the time, right? And not to mention like YouTube itself and TikTok and Instagram and whatnot. And they have all these apps now where you can like text anybody and do anything and whatever, right? And so you have these kids who are making these connections through social media, through all these websites, through all these apps and everything else. And they get into these, what they call relationships, which they're not, they're online. They don't, whatever. So these kids that are in these like relationships with these people they've never met in their lives. And they somehow, are persuaded or convinced to send a explicit picture of themselves or part of themselves or convinced to do something to themselves or other people or whatever else. And then that person on the other end uses it to blackmail them. or they go ahead and post it up on the internet. And there's been a lot of talk lately of kids who have been blackmailed by whatever person is on the other end of that app, that game, that phone, that whatever, where they've convinced them to send them these pictures or do these things. And they have ended up taking their own lives because they have been so worried about what their parents were going to say or their friends were going to say, or they were embarrassed by things. And instead of talking, because we've somehow raised a generation who all they know how to do is text. They don't talk to their parents. They don't talk to anybody really. And the fact that First Lady Melania Trump, Miss Melania Trump, I don't know how I'm supposed to call her. I don't feel like Melania is right because it's not like we're on first name basis with each other, but First Lady Trump, First Lady Melania. I don't know. What do y'all call her? Is it First Lady Melania Trump? Like, do you do the whole thing? Either way, what she is doing here to make it so that if, let's say, your child, your grandchild, your whoever happens to have, even if they're not taking the pictures and sending them to somebody, there's people out there who you can't trust, these kids in these locker rooms, these bathrooms, these sleepovers, these whatevers, who will take a picture or whatever and go share it. I mean, we watched movies like this in the 90s and early 2000s of those kind of things happening, right? You take the picture and you send it and you share it with everybody. Well, now there's some sort of, at least hopefully soon when President Trump signs it into law, there will be a recourse to things like this. And this is not, before anybody gets this shit twisted, this is not an infringement on your First Amendment right. Not in the least, not at all, whatsoever at all. When you are sharing when you are non-consenting sharing, how do you phrase that? When you're sharing things that you haven't been given consent to share, some days I swear my brain just has like crapped itself. That is not okay. There was an article where I live about this guy that was on the beaches and was recording these girls on the beach, like recording them for his own personal pleasure or whatever else. And he got tackled by a bunch of dudes who saw it and were like, what the crap are you doing? These are teenage girls, like 14, 15, 16. And this guy is like recording them with his phone. And that was like a thin line for people going, well, technically it's public place. They're out there. He can record them. He's not doing anything illegal. Is it skeezy and disgusting as all get out? Well, yes, it is. But is it illegal? And that's where the question comes in. Now, if this is to get signed, if that man were to record these girls and then find some way, like get them in a compromising position in any of these, I don't know if that would count if he shared it, if it's not explicit, like if it's not showing any body parts or whatever. But at that point, it's non-consensual, right? If he takes these videos and these pictures of these girls and shares them, like let's say that it's a girl in a thong bathing suit and laying down and he zooms in on her butt. If he shares that on social media, is that going to be considered non-consensual sharing? And would that be something that he could legally be taken to court over or whatever? And like, how do you know? Like, you just happen to be scrolling the internet one day, you're like, that looks ridiculously like my buttocks. And then you realize it is. Like, who do you reach out to? Is there like a hotline? You go, hey, listen, I happen to be on this, because then you have to tell them what site you're on, which that's going to be interesting for some people, and go, I was scrolling and there's my butt. How do we get this off of here? And then you have to go through the whole entire channel or network of getting it removed. It's going to be a hassle for a lot of people, but if you happen to have something that's been shared out there that's like extra explicit that you did not consent to, I'm pretty sure you'll go through the legwork to get it removed. So either way, First Lady Melania Trump and her husband, Mr. President Donald J. Trump, hopefully will sign this into law soon. And this will be another way to keep our kids safe and ourselves, because you just never know. Like, you may be out there sending your boo thing boobies and stuff like that, and then your boo thing and you break up and they're like, ooh, I'm gonna put these all over the internet. You just never know, right? So you better trust everybody you share stuff with. But besides that, the other thing I was going to mention to you, if I can find it, because I'm scrolling here, the nope, I lost it, y'all. Welcome to my life of losing things. No, I lost it. I'll save it for the next live stream that we do. Either way, I love y'all immensely. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you beyond belief. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, and trade wars, or it's, consensual booby pic sharing or booty pic sharing, whatever. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you didn't already leave them in the live chat, leave them in the comments below. Make sure you guys check out the pinned comment and the description for the video, because it's important. I love you all, and I'm just trying to help everybody and whatever. But besides that, I love y'all. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.